Okay guys, so we're gonna move on to quadratic formula. I'm gonna slow it down and probably just talk about the first step of setting up to solve with the quadratic formula, and that is actually identifying the a, b, and c and find the discriminant. Okay, that's the second part I'm going to cover today. Okay, so first thing we gotta know is it's going to be in ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0 form. So that's standard form. Okay, so we're going to practice just identifying our parts because I got to have an a, b, and c. Okay, first thing I look at is my equation. So let's look at number 1. And it says right here, rewrite if necessary. So it has to be in that form. I look at number 1, 2x squared plus 4x minus 3 equals 0. And I see it does equal 0. It's an A, B, C form. So I'm going to identify my A, B, and C. My A equals 2. So I see it there. My B equals 4. And my C equals negative 3. Okay, so in order to get the quadratic formula, I gotta identify my A, B, and C. Okay, let's look at number 2. I have negative 9x squared minus 5x equals 4. Is it in standard form? Pretty close, but I need it to equal 0, so that means I need to get rid of this 4. So I need to get rid of this 4. That means I gotta subtract 4 to get it to 0. If I subtract 4 on this side, I gotta subtract 4 on the other side of the equal sign. And I can't subtract 4 from a term with x or a term with x squared. That means I just tack it on at the end. So negative 9x squared minus 5x minus 4 equals 0. Okay, so I want you to identify the A, B, and C. Okay, so your A, B, and C is A is negative 9, B is negative 5, C is negative 4. I have it written out right there. Okay, so I've identified A, B, and C. Let's look at number 3. First thing I want you to do is rewrite it. Okay, so I should got x squared minus x, because remember I gotta bring that x over here with the x squared, so it turns from positive to negative. I also gotta move that negative 3 or that minus 3 over here so it becomes positive. And then once I move them over to the left, they pretty much change signs, and I got 0 on the right, so equals 0. Now it's an ABC form. So now identify the A, B, and C. Yeah, we should have got my A. There's no A there, so that means it's a 1. My B is negative 1 because it's minus x, so that means minus 1x. And my C is 3. Okay, so now I have my numbers that I can use in my quadratic formula. That's what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so now that I have my equations in standard form, I know what my A, B, and C are. So if you look at these, they're the same ones I used above. They're just already written in standard form. And here's my quadratic formula. Okay, so right now all we're going to practice is writing it in this formula form. Okay, notice A, B, and C. Okay, so pretty much all I'm doing is replacing all these variables, these letters, with a number. Okay, so I'm going to look at the first one. I already know that A is 2, my B is 4, and my C is negative 3. Okay, so all I'm doing is I'm using this formula. I'm going to substitute all those numbers in, and I gotta look at the signs too. That's negative B, so look at my B, it's a positive 4, so that means it's gonna be minus 4. If my b was negative, then it would be two negatives and it would turn into positive, so it would be opposite sign. And we'll practice those maybe on a future problem. Probably going to use it on this one. Okay, so I got -4 plus or minus, because that's where it separates into two solutions. Plus or minus the square root of b. My b is still 4. So b squared minus 4. My a, I go back and look for my a. My a is 2. So times 2. My c is -3. Remember, that square root's all on the inside. And it's all going to be divided by 2 times whatever my a is, which is 2. Okay, we're not going to solve it. All we're doing is setting it up. So now it's set up to solve. Okay, so now I want you to do the second one. Identify the a, b, and c. And then how would it look as with the quadratic formula? Okay, so this is how it should have been written. Now in your answer choices, remember, if I get two negatives, a negative times a negative is a what? Positive, so that should be a +5. So in your answer choice, you should have seen a 5 plus and minus the square root of -5 squared, because my b is negative, minus 4 times -9 times -4, all divided by 2 times -9. Now I want y'all to try a third one. Okay, so you should have got a positive 1, because remember my b is negative still, -1, a is 1, b is -1, c is 3. So my b is -1, so that means in my formula, remember it's -b. So that means it would be negative, and my 1 is also negative, so that becomes a positive. Plus or minus the square root of -1 squared, minus 4 times 1, because it's a is 1. My c is 3, and it's all over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay, so that's how we would set up our formula. So now let's talk about solving part of it. Okay, so we're going to talk about the discriminant formula. Now, what is the discriminant? That's going to be probably the first part you solve in the quadratic formula. It is actually the part underneath the square root symbol. Okay, so it's the part underneath the square root symbol. So it's this part right here. Without the square root. Okay, so that means to find the discriminant, all I have to do is find this part. B squared minus 4ac. And what that pretty much means is, once I find the discriminant, then that makes solving a little bit easier because I already got rid of this part. I just got to square root it. Okay, so 4 squared minus 4ac is the discriminant. Now what does the discriminant tell you? It tells you the types of solutions. Okay, there's 3 types. So the discriminant tells you what type of solution. And if it's one of these types, then you're done. You don't have to worry about the rest of it because there's no solution. So let's talk about the different types. If I solve this and I get a positive number, that means I'm going to have 2 solutions. And that's probably going to be the case most of the time. You're going to have 2 solutions. If I get a negative number, I might have no solution. And I'll explain that when we actually find the no solution, a negative number, why that's the case. So no solution. If I get 0, so that means if I get a 0, when I solve that b squared minus 4ac and it equals 0, that means there's only one solution. Okay, so you're looking for types of solutions when you do discriminant. 2, no, and 1. So 2, none, and 1. Okay, so let's talk about actually doing the discriminant. Okay, and there is, I know we don't have our inspires, but there is something we can use. It's on desmos.com/calculator. So if I really want to look for it, okay, let's say I want to look for it, I just got to put Desmos graphing calculator. I can just look it up like that. Okay, it's right here, graphing calculator Desmos, and I get a type of calculator that I can use. There it is, and I have my keypad down here. Okay, so that's what I want to use today. And it also graphs. If you put an equation there, it'll graph it for you. Quadratics also. Okay, so let's find the discriminant and the number of solutions. So first thing I want to do is find my A, B, and C. So right here, I'm going to identify, is it an ABC form? Yes. So I know my A equals 1. My B equals -6. My C equals 10. Okay, so I'm going to put it into my discriminant formula. I'm going to write it right here. Let's write it over here. B squared minus 4ac. So I'm going to plug these numbers into this formula and I'm going to solve it. B is -6. Make sure you're putting that in parentheses. So -6 squared minus 4. It's always 4. My A times my A times my C. So 4 times 1 times 10. Okay, and then I solve it. -6 squared is, or I can solve it right here. Let's see. -6 squared. There's that a square up there. Minus 4 times 1 times 10. And I press equals. Oops, I messed up somewhere. Let's see. What did I mess up? Okay, I figured it out. So once I put in the formula, I don't press equals. Don't press equals because that's if you're might be when you're solving an equation. Maybe you can solve equations on Desmos. You're actually pressing this return key, the enter key, this blue button down here. You press blue button, and I'll tell you it equals -4. So if it's negative, I come up here. If it's a negative number, it means it's no solution. Okay, so now you try the next one. X squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. What is the discriminant? And what type of solution does it give me? Okay, so you should have got square root 36. I mean 6 is 36. 4 times 1 times 9 is 36. 36 minus 36 is 0. If I get 0, that means there's one solution. Okay, try that last example. X squared minus 6x plus 8 equals 0. Okay, so you should have got square root of, -6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 8 is 36 minus 32, which is 4. Remember, you can just put this whole thing in that decimal calculator and it'll solve it. It'll say 4. If I get a positive number, that means I have two solutions. Okay, so let's practice one more just to make sure we got it. Okay, so you try. Determine the number and type of solutions for x squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. So first find me the discriminant. Okay, so your discriminant is 17. So what type of solution is my quadratic formula going to be? My quadratic equation if my discriminant is 17. And that is 2 solutions. Okay, so hopefully this helps you out on your quizzes if you haven't done it yet. Next week, we're going to go further into quadratic formula and practice it more. So I'm going to grade more on this puzzle just as an intro. Try your best on the quizzes, but I do want you to do that both assignments this week. Okay, guys, y'all have a good week. Hopefully you'll get this done early. Bye.